Having identified the hazards, the next task is to decide how likely it is that the hazard will cause you or others harm, i.e., the level of risk. But what is risk? Well, the dictionary definition is a situation involving exposure to danger. It's rather short, isn't it? So no wonder we all interpret risk differently. Our perception and acceptance of risk is often driven by an emotional response rather than a rational one. For example, flying in a plane to many is considered a greater risk than driving a car, even though all the statistics point to the contrary. Moreover, once a perception of risk sets in, it's very hard to change, even if all evidence points to the opposite. You're far more likely to perform an unsafe act if you feel that you're in control of the situation. This is because risks perceived to be under your own control are more acceptable than risks perceived to be controlled by others. Socio-psychological studies have shown that everybody estimates their personal risk to be lower than the average risk. This is statistically impossible and reflects an unrealistic optimism we all share. In certain situations, the reverse is also true. If we feel like we lack the appropriate skills, we hand over control. Handing over control to a responsible person or organization recreates the perception that we've regained control. In a nutshell, risk and perception of risk are not always aligned. It's important to remember that risk is not the possibility of something going wrong, it's the probability of something going wrong. Through scientific research, we can calculate the risk based on frequency, conditions, and length of exposure. However, some types of risks are hard to quantify, either because of the complexity of the hazard or because we don't have the tools to fully understand it. Given risk is a part of everyday life, you can never fully eliminate it. But what you can do is evaluate and manage the risk. You can do this by using the hierarchy of hazard control. Often visualized as a triangle, the system has 5 methods of control, with the most effective at the top and the least effective at the bottom. Let's take a closer look at how the triangle can work. First, we need an example hazard to control. Next, we need a risk. Your first priority should be to eliminate the risk. This means physically removing the hazard from the situation. If the hazard can't be eliminated, you move to the next step, substitution. This means substituting the hazard with something that cannot cause harm. The third step is to engineer out the problem. Engineering controls don't remove the hazard, but rather isolate the person from the hazard. The fourth step in the triangle is to provide administrational controls. This is about changing the way people work through training or putting up a sign. The last step to consider is personal protective equipment. This is the least effective method of hazard control, but involves the individual wearing some kind of equipment or clothing that protects the individual from the hazard. Finally, you need to consider that some hazards may require multiple controls in the workplace. The hierarchy of control is a method for choosing risk control measures that can be used by employees on every level of a company. You need to use these control methods on a day-to-day basis to keep you safe whilst at work.